His name was Paolo, and he didn't speak a word of English. Medium latte, extra hot, episode 19. Which is 9. So 1 and 9. So this is a story about how when I employed an Italian guy called Paolo who didn't speak a word of English. And I initially, at that point, I was working in Brighton. I had broken my collarbone. I was with some friends at the weekend, and we were going for a little bike ride, and we came across a disused mini golf, which is in Saltdean, and it's right near the Lido, and it's like a big hill that goes up, and it's disused. Who's got these bunkers that kind of come down the hill. And I was on my bike. I was with my son, who was 5 at the time. My son's now 19, so this was like about 14 years ago. This happened, and I decided to. It's obviously completely showing off. I can admit that. I decided to ride to the top and come down and hit this bunker and jump up, thinking, yeah, that's going to look cool, get some air, and then land on. And I just had this thought it would be easy, and I've never done a jump before on a bike, and it all went drastically wrong. So as I flew up, I started to go over and over and over, and I landed upside down, and I kind of landed on my shoulder, and it went snapped my collarbone in here. Was it? Yeah, I think actually it might have been that side. It's hard to know. Yeah, I think this here is like a weird shape here that shouldn't be there. Yeah. So that's relatively flat, but that there is protruding here, or like just massively out of shape. That winded me at the same time, so I was like, my friends came running over. My son Ollie was there, and I was kind of, I can't breathe. I don't know if you've ever winded. It just feels quite scary. It feels like you can't breathe and you can't take a full breath. That kind of passed very quickly, and then the pain kicked in of the broken collarbone, and it was kind of it wasn't a massively hot day, but it was weird. I felt really hot, and I was like, oh my god, I'm really hot, and they were calling the ambulance at the time, and I told them to take my socks off because I was just feeling really hot. It's just a weird moment, and the ambulance came. The ambulance couldn't get into the park because there was a barrier with a lock they had to find, so it took quite a while, and by the time they got to me, I kind of was calmed down a lot, and they took me in the hospital. They took me in an ambulance to the hospital and stuff, and they said because it hadn't broken the skin, they weren't going to operate. So they just gave me a sling and said it's just going to have to fuse back together, which is what it did. But that left me in a bit of a predicament for working. I was self-employed, so I still had to work, so I needed to find a way around that. And so I put an advert for someone to help, needed to drive and to work. And my plan was to just sit in the passenger seat, take them through all the customers, and then just point and say, right, do this, do that. So hopefully I needed someone experienced. And luckily, a guy called Paolo, who was a gardener in Italy, got a call from his girlfriend to say, my boyfriend is looking for a job, and he is a gardener. I can't remember if it was a text or something, because when they turned up for the interview, I don't know if she told me about his English, but she turned up and explained who he was, and that he doesn't speak any English. And I was like, oh god. And I literally had no other options at that time, so I said, let's just figure this out. So he drove, and it was kind of just this really awkward time, 2 weeks, months of just us struggling through, speaking to each other, pointing, getting like a little bit sketchy. But the funny part of it was the first day. Paolo is a great guy, he's a great gardener. He's got a little bit of weight on him, right? And I don't know if that affected the day that we worked. It was a boiling hot day. Maybe he hadn't worked for a few months, so he wasn't quite prepared for the amount of work that we did. Bearing in mind, he was doing it all on his own. I couldn't help him because I was all strapped up. Like, do you know what I mean? So we finished the day, and on the way home, he had a little bit of English, like just a few words here and there, and we were driving home. I think I was driving. No, I'm confused. I think I had my cousin's husband working me for a couple of weeks. So by the couple of weeks that had passed, when I got Paolo, I was actually driving. I couldn't work, but I could just about change gears without hurting too much. Yeah, that was it. And then I had Paolo. And Paolo had done a full day's work with me in the boiling hot sun. He's got a bald head with like a little bandana on. And we were driving back home. I was taking him back to where he lived. And he's like, Peter, stop, Peter, stop. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? So I pulled over and he's like screaming, Peter, stop. And I stopped. He jumped out of the van, ran across the main road in Brighton by the seafront. And he goes over to a bin, lifts up the bin and starts puking up in the bin. So I'm like, what the heck? On his first day. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with him? Maybe he had heat stroke or something. I don't know. And then he came back and I realised he'd opened up the dog poo bin. So just the smell of that would probably make you puke. But I think it must have been heat stroke. And he'd been working like the first day in the boiling hot heat all day. It must have just taken its toll on him. And he just like puked up. But that was a good start to our working relationship. But he ended up staying with me for that whole like rest of that season, I think at least. And then he ended up getting his van and doing his own gardening. But I think I helped him like learn English. He taught me some Italian, and he taught me some of the rude words. Vaffanculo is I think that's a swear word, and porcadia, which is French for I don't even want to say it, but those are kind of some of the things he taught me. But and I helped him with his English, and we became friends. He's now moved on. He now works in the wood store in Brighton, and occasionally I'll see Facebook pictures of him like making all these furniture and stuff. It's like his dream. He loves it. He absolutely loves that job. So it's nice to see him progress. And Italian people, they work hard. I've had a couple of Italian people work with me in the past, and they work hard. They're good workers. And they're funny. I've had at least three, and they're all different characters, but they were always good workers. There you go. The joys of employing people and figuring stuff out. Okay, that was episode 19. We're up for 20 tomorrow. Boom! See you tomorrow, guys.